Hello, and this is another preparatory recording for our class in the first cluster of Sugyot, which is about Set HaKochavim and Ben Hashemashot. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to study the Mishnah that's discussed in our Sugya. This is the first Sugya in Berakhoth, and here it is. So I'll recite the Mishnah again. It's always good for you folks to recite the Mishnah several times. So this is an easy one. It has two parts. First part is Me'ematai and ends Bitrumatan. And then there's a second part with three alternatives. Ad Sof 1, Ad Hasot 2, and Ad Sheya'ale Amud Hashach. So part 1, part 2. Part 1 has a question and an answer. Part 2 has an implied question and three answers, three variations of answers, which is a mahloket. Me'ematai korin et shema be'arvin misha'a shehakohanim nichnasin le'echol bitrumatan ad sof ha'ashmoret harishona dibre Rabbi Eliezer v'hachamim omrin עד חסות רבן גמליאל אומר עד שיעלה עמוד השחר. I'll do it again. מאימתי קוראים את שמע בערבין משעה שהכהנים נכנסים לאכול בתרומתן עד סוף האשמורת הראשונה דברי רבי אליעזר והחכמים אומרים עד חסות רבן גמליאל אומר עד שיעלה עמוד השחר. Now we're going to study Harambam. כבר ביארנו בהקדמתנו, we already explained in the Hakdama, which is to sorry, there's some glitch on the screen. So we already explained in Hakdama to the Pirush HaMishnayot, the Kitab Is-Siraj, which this book is, we're reading from. Ta'am Hithalato Hathala Zo, the reason why Rabbeinu HaKadosh and his Betin who produced the Mishnah, why they started with this law in particular. Uma shehisrichu hesricho להגביל זמן קריאת שמע ערבית לפני שיגביל זמן קריאת שחרית. And also, we discussed in the Hakdama what caused him to define the time of Kiryat Shema Shel Arbin, means the window when you start and when you end for reciting it, prior to defining or giving the borders to Kiryat Shahrit, the reciting of the Kiryat Shema in the Shachrit. Lefi shekach bahakatuv lechobat Kiryata wubshoch becha wubkumecha, because the pasuk said describing the Kiryat Shema wubshoch becha wubkumecha. That's the last line of the first paragraph of the Shema. Kilomar. So it says wubshoch becha, and when you're going to sleep, wubkumecha, and when you wake up. Kilomar. שתהן נקראת בזמן שכיבת בני אדם ובזמן קומם משנתם. כלומר, יעני, the Kiryat Shema should be recited at the time people go to sleep, as most people, ya'ani, and at the time they get up from their sleep. וכוונתו באומרו משעה שהכהנים נכנסים לאכול בתרומתן, so מעת שנכנסים כהנים וטמאים שטבלו לאכול בתרומתן. What does it mean? So, Me'ematai korin et shema be'arvin, that's the first part, the first half question. When does the window start? Me'ematai, from when? And does the window in which to recite the Kiryat Shema Shel Arvit begin? Misha'a she'al-kohanim nichnasin le'echol bitrumatan. At the time the Kohanim return home to eat from their terumah. Return from where? I'll tell you in a moment. But why do you need to say it about that? What does this have to do with terumah? Why don't you just say the time? So here we have the Chavanato be'omro b'sha'a she'al-kohanim nichnasin le'echol bitrumatan מעט שנכנסים כהנים טמאים שתבלו לאכול בתרומתן. So if you are tameh, you have to go to the tebilah during the daytime and wait till the day ends. And when the day ends, then you can eat the terumah. And this is only after the whole day has passed. Like the pasuk says in Emor, Uba hashemesh v'taher ve'achar yochal min hakodashim. Once the sun has gone down, Uba hashemesh, that's sunset, and the kohen has become tahor, ve'achar yochal min hakodashim, like I explained in the first video. Uma shehisricho lomar mish'a she'hakohanim nichnasin v'lo amar miset hakochavim. So here's the question though, if it's really Seta Kochavim, like we read in the Tosefta, why do you need to express this law in terms of Kohanim? Why do you go to another domain, law of Kohanim, eating Tirumah, and then come back to the domain of Kriyat Shema? Why don't you say, Me'ematai Korin et Shema be'arin misha'at, Seta Kochavim? It would be more dense, it would be more clear. Why? The reason is to teach us another legal principle, on back of, like a byproduct of expressing the law of Kriyat Shema. And what is that to'elet? Shekohen tameh shetabal hayom hutar lo le'echol bitruma acharei sheki'at ha'chama ve'af'al pi shehu mechusar kippurim. So the Milita Agab Orhe Kamashmi'a Alan, the way Harambam is explaining it here in the Kitab Is-Siraj, is that the additional principle we're telling you, so we don't say Seta Kochavim, we phrase it in terms of the Kohanim, is that a Kohen can eat at the time of Seta Kochavim, the same time when you recite the Shema, you begin reciting the Shema, even though he is still Bechosar Kippurim. So this is a specific kind of Tum'ah Zab, or Zava, or Yoledet, or Mesorah. Those four are called Mechosere Kippurim. There's a special set of laws in the Mishnah Torah about them. We will study them, sections of those laws at some point. And there's two levels of there's three levels of eating. If you're a Kohen who's Tameh in one of these two areas, right? Only a woman can be Yoledet, only a woman can be Zaba, but Zab or Mesorah, there's three stages at which your Tum'ah dissipates. First stage, you go to Tebilah on the last day of your Tum'ah, it's the seventh day. Immediately after the Tebilah, which must be done in the daytime. You can only make Tebilah in the daytime for men. Only women, for a Niddah, only a woman who's Niddah can make Tebilah in the nighttime. That's a whole different story. But the general rule is Tebilah must be done at the daytime, and it applies to all men. So a Kohen who is Tameh from one of the Mechusere Kippurim Tum'ot, namely Zab or Mesorah, he goes to the Tebilah on the seventh day of his Tum'ah. As soon as he is matbil, then he may eat ma'aser. Ma'aser is one of the kadashim. It's kodesh. So you can't eat it betum'ah. As long as he goes to the Tebilah on that seventh day, he's tahor. He can eat for the purposes of ma'aser. For terumah, he must wait until the day totally passes, which is the Seta Kochavim. And for the next day, he's supposed to go to the Mikdash and bring a korban. And then after the korban, he can eat kadashim, which is animals, which are kodesh, which are offered in part to the mizbeach in the temple. So there's three levels. There is ma'aser, terumah, and kadashim. And then there is tebilah, bi'at shimsho, it's called, means the sunset, but we say it's seta kochavim, and that's the change in law that we're discussing in this cluster. And the third one is hevi kaparato. We're going to cite a Mishnah about that too. Anyway, Now Haramam says it a weird way. He says it as if it's not set to kochavim, but just shikiat hachama. Vehi shekohen tameh shetabal hayom hutar lo leechol bitruma achare shikiat hachama ve'af al pi shehu mechusar kippurim. Even though he's the legal category of mechusar kippurim, כגון שהייתה טבילה זו אחרי גמר זיבות או סרעת. זיבות, probably, זיבות או סרעת. שאין טהרתו נגמרת אלא עד שיקריב קורבנות חובתו ממחרת. So, if you're mechusar kippurim with the special tumot I just described, zibut or sara'at, and you're not completely tahor until you bring the korbanot on the next day, lefichach, so at the second stage, when you already made the tebilah, now you have bi'at shemesh, hishme'anu shemutar lo le'echol bitruma kodem sheyakriv otam korbanot. You can eat the teruma before hevi kaparato. That's important. לפי שלא התנה באכילת התרומה, אלא הבאת שמש ולא הבאת כפרה. And the way the Sifra says it, בעד שמשו אוכל בתרומה, הביא כפרתו אוכל בקודשים. That's right. Now we're going to discuss the second half of the Mishnah, which has to do with when is the end time of the window in which you may recite Kiryat Shema. The halakha is like Rabban Gamliel, which is the third opinion. Rhetorically, you open with Ad Sof Ha'ashmoret Harishona. You put the law first and then say who says it. Dibre Rabbi Eliezer. But if you're disagreeing, you put the name of whoever's saying it first, and then you say the law. V'ha'amim omrin al-hasot Rabban Gamliel omer ad sheya'aleh amud hashachar. So we say Dibrei Rabbi Eliezer second after the law, but all the other two remaining cases, we have the name first, V'ha'amim omrin ad hasot, then the ad, Rabban Gamliel omer ad. So there's three odds, but the first one, the law comes first, then the person. The second two, which disagree, that's why you do it. That's the same thing as Amar Rava versus Rava Amar, right? But in the Mishnah, you can say the law first, then you say Dibre Rabbi X, the Y Omer, the Z Omer. That's the form, right? You invert the law and who said it. So V'ha'amim Omrin is disagreeing. Al-Hasod, Rabban Gamliel Omer, also disagreeing with both of the previous. So the position of Rabbi Eliezer is Ad Sof Ha'ashmoret Harishona. One point here, as you know from Harambam's Hakdama to this Kitab Is-Siraj, there's no mahloket on anything which is a Kabbalah min Moshe Rabbeinu. So if you have a mahloket here as to when the window for Kiryat Shema ends, there was no tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu as to when the time to end the last time you may say the Kiryat Shema Shel Arvin exists. So what happened? They didn't have it? Hold that question in abeyance. It has to do with the fact that Kiryat Shema itself is an entirely din mufla. It was not known from the Torah. Okay? Ve'ashmura Shem Shalish Halayla Islam. They called on Ashmura a third of the night. Nimsa Shazeshi Amar Ashmura Harishona, who Shalish Rishon in Halayla. So Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos, is saying the time ends at the first third of the night. In a 1/3 of the night, that's all. The Amud HaShahar, and Rabban Gamliel invokes the term Amud HaShahar. What does that mean? Hu Amud HaOr HaBokeh Baboker. That refers to like a pillar of light which radiates in the morning, but it's without the sun, before the sun comes up. Vehu or Yera'eh Bifat Mizrach Kodem Alot HaShahar. That's light which will be seen in the eastern sky before the sun rises. And what is it? Kishav HaHomesh min HaSha'ot HaShavot. It's about a 1.2 hours without Zimaniyot. That's what it means, Sha'ot HaShavot. That would be, what's a fifth of an hour is 12 minutes. 5 times 12 is 60. A whole hour is 60 minutes. 1/5 is 12 minutes. 72 minutes. V'simbato kerevat shetach hekef or hashemesh le'avim hakevedim ha'olim min ha'aris tamid. So v'simbato in a physical sense, why is this? What causes this alot hashahar pre-sunrise light? So it's because the horizon that surrounds the sunlight before the sun is visible, but the sun is still there, the earth is turning towards it, right? So this sunlight illuminates the dense clouds that always rise up from the ground. I think he means the mist or water vapor is rising off of the ground as the sun starts to illuminate the earth. The heat from the sun causes some moisture to go up to become water vapor and therefore rise because it's a gas. Should go up, and these dense clouds, they have a height above the ground about 51 mil, 51 mil. I don't know what his source for that is, and that's not our scope for this set of laws, but that's what Hanuman believed, that there is a kind of an atmosphere 51 mil high of dense clouds, and the light engages with them, and as the water vapor rises, they reflect or refract perhaps the sunlight from the sun that's below the horizon. And why does that work? Because the sun, we only see it at the horizon when it comes above. The disk of the sun goes above our horizon, but much higher than that, the sun has a direct line to those dense clouds from where it is. So it illuminates the clouds, and the clouds reflect the light towards us, refract the light towards us, and we don't need sunrise to see that light. That's Alot HaShahar, 72 minutes prior to sunrise. Now, the Hachamim, which is the second opinion of the Ad Sof, or Ad Hasot in this case, they agree with Rabban Gamliel, really. About Amru al Hasod, but they said al Hasod in order to, if you set a deadline that's well in advance of the actual deadline, people may fudge on the artificial deadline of Hasod, and they'll set at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., but because they're worried about Hasod and might come out late, they're not going to ever come too late past Amud HaShahar. So the last time you can say Kiryat Shema is this Amud HaShahar, which is 72 minutes before sunset. Sha'od equal Sha'od. There's no Sha'od Zemaniyot. There's no relative time or during the day, during the night. Sorry, during the night there's no time because analog time has to do with sundials, and there's no sun during the night, so it's a fixed time. Even though the Hachamim say what they say on Hasod, they agree with Rabban Gamliel. Therefore, the halacha is like Rabban Gamliel and not Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol. So you have effectively all night until Amud HaShahar. That's the entire first Mishnah, and I think that's enough for this preparatory class. Oh, I want to, no, not quite. I want to add one thing. So let me close this, stop presenting. Why is it not working? All right, I'm going to switch windows. Yes, okay. And I'm looking now for this is the Sifra I mentioned. This is how the Hachamim used the pasuk to express this. La'uba Hashemesh v'taher. It's talking about the Kohen, who is a Tabul Yom, but he's still Mechosar Kippurim. That's the Milleta Agab Orhe Kamashmi Alan. I hope you studied the Sugya, at least prepared it. And you have to. If you did, you know that phrase. What is the Agab Orha, the byproduct, the secondary principle that the Mishnah is going to tell us by formulating the opening time of the window to recite Kiryat Shema Shel Arvin in terms of Kihuna, in terms of the laws of Kohen Tameh. Uba Hashemesh v'taher bi'ad shimsho me'akevato mele'echo bitruma ve'en kaparato me'akevato mele'echo. That should be mele'echo. It's my typo, mele'echo bitruma. So on the pasuk Uba Hashemesh v'taher, the Sifra, which is the Midrash Halacha, says bi'at shimsho is what precludes him from eating terumah. That means sunset. But the next morning's kapara, which is a korban in the mikdash, which is required to completely make him tahor from the zivut or the sarat, that doesn't preclude him from eating terumah. You can eat terumah that night as long as when the day ends. Now, the old term for when the day ends is bi'at shimsho. Uba hashemesh v'taher ve'achar yochal min hakodashim. So the Sifra echoes that by saying bi'at shimsho me'akevato mele'echo bitruma ve'en kaparato me'akevato mele'echo bitruma. Fine. But we're going to change the definition of bi'at shimsho or uba hashemesh to mean uba hashemesh plus v'taher harakia min ha'or. But that's not the original understanding. That's not what the Peshat is. So the Sifra echoes the correct term, bi'at shimsho. That's fine. I want to do one more thing here. The laws and Terumot of Harambam. Kohen tameh, asur le'echol teruma. If you're tameh, you cannot eat teruma. Ben teme'ah, ben tehora. Whether the teruma itself is teme'ah or tehora, it's haram to eat it. Shene'emar, ish mizera aharon. The Kohen, who is sarua ozab, he has sara'at, which is a kind of a skin cancer, not leprosy like they tell you. Ozab means his semen leaks out of his male member, not when he's sexually aroused. So it's an illness. Kodashim lo yochal. He cannot eat kodashim. What kind of kodashim? Kodashim kalim, which is animal offerings. Ezehu kodesh she'ochlin oto kol zera aharon. Zecharim unkevot ve'omer terumot. So what do you mean? What is the kind of kodesh? This is a noun. A kodesh is a noun that means a place, a time, or an object, either animal or plant, which is ritually specialized. Okay, the shoresh kol dalachin means to set apart or to make special. Mamlechet kohanim ve'hoi kadosh does not mean a holy people. Nobody knows what holy means. It's a Christian idea, and it's a metaphysical idea, like a spiritual being or entity. We don't have that. Ezehu kodesh. Kodesh is an object that kol zera aharon eats it, both male and female. Ve'omer terumot. אלא שהאוכל תרומה טהורה חייב מיתה בידי שמיים ולפיכך נוקה. So if you are tameh and you eat teruma, which is tehora, so you are tameh and the teruma is tehora and you eat that teruma, you're חייב מיתה בידי שמיים, and therefore you get makot. שנאמר ושמרו נשמרתי ולא יישאו עליו חטא. וטמא שאכל תרומה טמאה, אף על פי שהוא בלאו אינו לוקה, Shehare enaha kodesh. Now, a kohen tameh who eats teruma, which is teme'ah, even though it's haram and it violates the mitzvah lo ta'aseh, enoloke. He does not get makot or any other punishment because once teruma becomes teme'ah, it loses its status as kodesh. Now, only a Christian would think that kodesh means holy, and you could change the holiness status of an object by it becoming ritually tameh, which is a set of laws which says once this happens, this object or this human becomes tameh. There's no internal metaphysics about tum'ah. And I think Harambam has a very pithy comment, I think at the end of the laws on tahorot, I think it's at the end of mikvaot, and you should read that. It's very important. Now, I've been having argument on Facebook with some Yahoo, and I'm not shy to say that. He's a Brandeis PhD who thinks that Kodesh always means holiness, and you can't shake loose this notion. אין הטמאים אוכלים בתרומה עד שיעריבו שמשן ויסעו שלושה כוכבים בינוניים. The Kohanim Temeim cannot eat teruma until Ya'aribu Shimshan, Ya'aribu Ayin Resh Bet, Me'arib Ad Arib Tishbetu Shabbat Techem. Arib is a cognate of the Arabic word Gharab, like Maghreb. Maghreb is Ma'arab. Gharab means to go down, like to descend below the horizon. So Ad Shi'aribu Shimshan, until their sun, means the sun on that day in which they made Tevilah, goes down below the horizon. And a second stage, V'yeseu Shelosha Kochabim Benoni. V'zeh ha'et kemo sheli sha'a ahar sheki'at ha'hama. This time, when the three medium-sized stars appear in the sky, this is about a third of an hour, which would be 20 minutes. After Shiki al-Hama, the actual time is 18 minutes, but Harambam here is saying about a third of an hour. And by the way, since Shiki already happened, this can't be Sha'od Zemaniyot. So the Aharonim who have a whole pilpul about how you calculate Set al-Kochabim, it varies with time and season. No, it does not. It's a fixed time. It's a fixed time. And you're going to see why in our sugya in Masechet Shabbat about Mil. Mil is a fixed time. It's not a variable time. שנאמר, ובה השמש וטהר עד שיטהר הרקיע מן האור ואחר יאכל מן הקודשים. So Harambam now is restating the halacha after the derasha that's being expressed in our sugya here in Berakhoth has already been formulated and presented and accepted at the yeshiva, and I mean at the kalot of Rabbi Asher. It becomes the halacha, and therefore me'ematai korin et shema be'arvin becomes misha'asha kohanim nichnasin le'echol bitrumatan, which is the new time frame set kochabim. The original time frame when kohanim could eat teruma was as soon as their sun set, just like the pasuk says, uba hashemesh ve'taher. That's the kohen is tahor, and now he may eat the teruma tehora. That is Harambam's restatement here. A lot of the Girsaot from Europe do not have this line. That creates the whole confusion and allows the so-called Aharonim to come in and make all these pilpulim. The Seta Kochabim is a variable time. It's not. I think that's quite enough for the second review. Thank you very much. And we will see you Sunday morning at 11. This first one, it's at 11. And then we're done. Thank you very much for watching. This is Midrash Halewa.